Hey, solopreneurs, Gabe here. Today we have Rai Hyde Cornell. If you're a longtime listener to the podcast, you have probably heard her before. This is her second time on the podcast, but she's going to talk about her business, Chiron. And Chiron Consulting is out there helping creatives run their businesses better and help them through coaching really get an understanding of how they really want their life to be and allow their business to support their life. I really hope you enjoy this conversation as much as I did, and I will let you give it a listen. Thank you. Rai, thank you for being on the podcast today.
Thanks so much for having me, Gabe.
You know, Rai, I'm excited. You are my first ever second time guest, my first ever
Oh.
repeat guest. So, one, that's pretty darn cool. Two, you're going to talk to us about your other business, and you're going to talk to us about some things that we as business owners are all feeling, and that's called the stages of business and the changes that come with those. And that to me, I think is going to be very pertinent information for pretty much anybody listening. And so my thought process is before we go there, though, we always got to hear your story. And I know not everybody heard you on the first one. So let's go ahead and have you share your story. What brings you up to today?
Oh, yeah. Well, it's been a long journey. For about 15 years now, I've been building my content marketing and copywriting business, and we've grown it into a full service agency. And over the past couple of months, there have just been a lot of life changes, personal things, family things, friend things, and then also business changes with clients, with team members, with services, and then just kind of also, I also had a birthday at the top of 2022. And so just kind of some life realizations around how I want to be spending my time. And, the great thing about us being entrepreneurs, being self employed, is that if we have these epiphanies in life, we can make pretty drastic pivots and changes without having to go to an employer and say, hey, I want to change this, or I want to apply for this new position, or I think I need to transfer to this other location, or leaving the company completely and going through the hiring process. And oh my God, that just sounds like such a nightmare. So thank goodness we're entrepreneurs and we can make these transitions in our same businesses when we inevitably go through life transitions. And so that's what happened to me recently. So I decided to make this big shift where we're taking the marketing agency and turning it into more of a marketing academy. And since I do have my second business, which is Chiron Consulting, which teaches freelancers and entrepreneurs all about the business of freelancing, it made a lot of sense because now I can teach people the skills of freelance writing, in particular, marketing strategy, marketing consulting, brand voice copywriting, teach them the skills. And then on the Chiron side, teach them the business, the mindset, and all of those pieces that go into the energy of building a business.
Wow. So help me understand. Where did that thought process come from? I mean, what was it that when was the whisper? I call them whispers. You
Oh,
said it was an epiphany. I call them whispers. So when did the whispers of Chiron come about? Because you've been working on Cornell for 15 years. When did the Chiron whispers start?
it's interesting because now looking back, I officially started Chiron in 2019. And I officially started Cornell, although it had a different name at the time, back in 2007. And now looking back, I can see that actually there were whispers all along, probably ever since I was a teenager. But the big kind of turning points were really when I started building my team of writers within the agency and training them on how to write for the web and how to harness the psychology of buying and really the connotation power within words, all of these kind of nuanced things that most online courses that you might take on Udemy or LinkedIn Learning and things like that don't teach you. That kind of naturally evolved into these little mentoring programs that I had with the freelance writers on my team. And I love freelancing. I love entrepreneurship. I love the freedom of it. I love the power of creating a living based on something that you create with your own mind and that you do from within. It's not, I'm not selling a product or anything like that. This is really creative services. And so that kind of passion and just fire that I have for that carried over to the people on my team. They got fired up. They got really excited. They started growing their businesses, getting more clients, doing more work within my agency. And I just kind of thought, there must be something to this. I've always loved teaching. I've always loved encouraging people. It's just kind of come naturally to me. And so officially, that's when Chiron was born. But it looking back, I mean, I have domains that I bought in like 2012 that I'm like, oh, I should really redirect that to the Chiron website because it's really the same thing.
Very interesting. So the whispers were there for many, many years, and you finally acted on those whispers. And so what are some of the things that you're finding your clients in the Chiron world? What are you finding some of the things that they need? I mean, where are their biggest needs for you as a coach?
Yeah. So, one thing that I really notice a lot of is that so many freelancers and entrepreneurs nowadays, they get caught up in the comparisonitis of social media and the online world. And in particular, I was working with one of my gals the other day, and she said, we were talking about her 2022 plans and what she wants for this year. And she goes, I want to hit seven figures. I go, cool. Okay, tell me why. And she goes, I don't know. That seems like the next stage. And we started breaking down what it would actually take for her to get her business to seven figures. And she realized she didn't want to do that. And so we dug a little deeper. What do you actually want? Well, I want financial stability. She has a newborn baby. She wants to be able to provide well for him. She wants to be able to travel. She wants to be able to take care of her parents who are getting up in age, all of these things. And I go, okay, do you think you need $40,000 a month to get to that? And she goes, oh my God, no. And so she realized that this six-figure and seven-figure goal that we see all over social media was something that was kind of implanted in her mind. And we had to do the work of making sure that her goals were coming from her first and foremost, that they were sourced from within her and what she really wants for her life, rather than those goals being sourced by social media and what everybody outside of us is telling us we need to do in order to be quote unquote successful.
We're actually just having a conversation with my 15-year-old daughter last night, and the craziness that social media provides. I mean, can you even imagine being a 15-year-old girl right now, or a 12-year-old girl to 19-year-old, and we'll just put boys and girls in there. The comparisonitis, you said it perfectly. The they're doing this and I'm not, and they're included in this and I'm not. And I'm speaking from a daughter who's involved. She's got friends, she's got all kinds of stuff going, but I can't even imagine their minds at that age, dealing with all the stuff. Because here we sit as adults, and seeing that same thing, that, hey, this person, is touting the idea of how to make $1 million in 90 days and how to do this and how to do that. And I see it too. And it's very interesting, but it's also very easy to get caught up in it and go, well, if they can do it, why can't I? So I can see that. So then that comes into, in my opinion, that comes into more mindset. Like, all right. And I love what you did with the methods, after the mindset. Like, okay, so if you really want to make $1 million, here's what you need to understand, or seven figures. Here's what it's going to take to get there. And by the way, 40,000 a month is not seven figures a year. 40,000 a month is easily probably achieved for her and still have an amazing life.
Right, right. And the reason I said 40,000 was because that was about 50% profit. So she would need to make about 83,000 a month in order to hit seven figures. And if she's at a 50% profit, which is very, very, very healthy for a freelance business, entrepreneur business, And she realized she didn't need that much. And so she was shooting for a goal that was way beyond A, what she actually needed, and B, what she really wanted to take on within her business. And that's really, we're talking about the stages of business today. And that's really what I see as a huge pain point for a lot of entrepreneurs is they gauge their stage of business by either how much time they've been in business, how much revenue they're making, the size of their team. Those really aren't the gauges of success. They're not the gauges of where you are in your business and how much progress you've made. But that's what social media, that's what the outside world, that's what the corporate world even tells us is if you're in 1 to 5 years, you're a startup, or if you have a team of 1 to 5 people, 1 to 10, 1 to 15 people, you're a small business. Or, if you're only making $5,000 a month, then you haven't made it yet. And it's all nonsense. It's all everyone else's standards. And you have to figure out what your standards are and what your goals are for yourself.
Couldn't agree with you more. So let's move on to the three stages, the different stages of business, the three stages, the changes that come with it. What are the things that you're seeing?
Yes. So the stages of business that I see are really based on the core purpose of your business. Your business is meant to serve you. Your business is meant to be a creative outlet. It's meant to bring joy and fulfillment to your life. It's meant to improve your quality of life. It's meant to give you financial security. And so the stages of business are based on how close are you to achieving that. You should not be in service of your business. Your business should be in service of you. And so the first stage of business is alignment. And the most concrete measure that I like to give people to know what stage of business you're in is how big are the decisions and the changes that you're making within your business? How big are they? If you are making these huge decisions around what your services are, what your rates are, what kind of clients or customers you want to be working with, and if you are morphing and adapting your business to remove what really makes you miserable so that you're doing something that you really care about, then you're in that alignment stage of business. That's the first stage where you are setting the foundation for you to be able to build the thing that's going to give you all of those quality of life factors.
Yeah, I talk about that quite a bit on this podcast about having your business support your life rather than your life support your business. And I see it way too much where people are literally working themselves to death and not really getting the benefits that come from owning a business. So I really like the way you put that on it should support your life. I like that.
Exactly. And that's what we start with when I work with clients and we start kind of redesigning their businesses. Oftentimes they come to me and they go, "Well, I don't know what services are going to sell, or I don't know what people are willing to pay for a blog post or a branding package or a photo shoot." And I tell them, "Hang on, back up. You will always find people to buy what you have to offer. You will always find people willing to pay the rates that you want. So, if there are all of those possibilities out there, why not start by deciding what you want to make, what you want to be offering, and who you want to work with? Otherwise, you're left with infinite possibilities. Your business is going to be scattered all over the place, and you're just going to lose your mind trying to keep track of it all, and you're going to be miserable. The way to be happy within your business is to start with you and set those foundational pieces according to what you want and how you want to be spending your time.
Yeah, that is so important. So important for you listening. That is so important. What normally happens, and I was guilty of this when I first started, is like, all right, are you alive? Do you fog a mirror? Will you do some business with me? And next thing you know, you amass this tremendously large, messed up, not conducive clientele package. And it's kind of like a big ball of yarn that you then, that has a few knots in it. And you've got kind of a mess that you have to unravel. And so by starting with these types of conversations, I know I would be even further than I am right now had I even done that. But I started off with, all right, what can I do to build a business? And then got down the road and went, okay, how can I clean this up? And it takes a while. For those of you listening, it takes a while to clean up. Trust me.
Yeah. But you have to start with you. And luckily, even though it can be a bit messy and it takes time and energy to really dig through your own layers and figure out what you really want, you have all of those answers within you. You just might need someone to serve as a sounding board or a guide or a mirror to say, hey, you're getting caught up in your own bullshit. I need you to really see past these fears and these self consciousness blocks and all of these things to really identify what it is that you want. And then you build the business from there. And that's stage one.
What is stage two?
Stage two is the construction stage. And this one, in my opinion, is the one that is the most fun, the most exciting. When we think about building a business, this is what we think about. This is where we are pulling all the pieces into place. We go, okay, so I need to have the website and I need to hire a VA and maybe I need to hire a designer. And you start pulling these pieces of your team, of your business, of your services, the way that you're going to deliver your services, the way you're going to engage with your clients. You start pulling all of those pieces into place, including your clients themselves. So, if you're in the stage of business where you are pulling all the pieces together, you're working on client acquisition, you're trying to figure out if you can do this with a team or without a team, and you want to be a business of one, and you are working through the kinks of your execution and delivery of your services, you're in the construction stage. These are those medium sized decisions and changes. You're not putting the foundational blocks in place. These are kind of those medium-sized blocks of where you're actually in operation.
So, what are some of those medium-sized decisions that you see people making?
For example, when people think about niching down, that's where you're making a medium-sized decision. Maybe you've already decided that you want to be a B2B business. You want to work with other businesses. Maybe you want to work with product-based businesses. And then in the case of my marketing agency, what we did at this stage was we decided, hey, actually, in addition to working with B2B and those B2B clients being B2C brands who are selling products to consumers, we want to niche even further and go into the subscription industry. We're not going to work with, the Petcos and the Costcos and the Walmarts of the world. We want to work with the Bark Boxes, the Carnivore Clubs, the Battle Boxes, the Netflix, the Orange Theory Fitness. We want to work with those subscription and membership brands. So that's where you're making those decisions that kind of refine your process. This may also be where you've decided, I'm going to take one of my clients who's a designer, for example. She decided she wants to focus on branding services. That was one of her alignment stage one decisions. Now she's in stage two where she's figuring out how she wants to deliver those services. Does she really want to have Zoom calls with clients 3, 4, 5, 6 times during their service delivery? No, she really hates being on Zoom calls. So we're modifying the way that she delivers her services using Loom videos and things like that so that she gets more enjoyment out of the actual delivery of her services, but she already knows what she wants to deliver.
Very interesting. And what are some of the maybe the trip ups that we see there, or some of the changes that we're faced when we go through that stage?
Yeah, so it really comes back to this sort of comparisonitis. It's, oh, everybody else is doing things over Zoom. Or if you're looking at your marketing, oh, everybody else is doing Facebook Lives and everybody else is doing this and that. Just because that's what you see other people doing doesn't mean that that's what you have to do or that that's the only thing that's successful. And so, again, it comes back to your quality of life within your business. What do you really want to be spending your time doing? If you love being on Facebook Live, you're very extroverted, you like to kind of have that platform and talk, great, do it. If you love being face to face with clients and you want to do Zoom calls, great, do it. But if, especially after these 2 years of COVID, you've realized you get fatigued more on Zoom and it's just, you want to limit yourself maybe to only 3 Zoom calls a week, but you want to have more client meetings than that. Why not phone calls? Why not use the phone? The vast majority of my client calls on the Cornell side are over the phone nowadays because I decided I was just done with all the Zoom face to face. This is where you can make those medium sized changes that affect your quality of life within your business, and you get to tailor your experience and your client's experience within your business to make sure that you're having fun, they're having fun, and still everyone's needs are being met. The work is still being done and everyone's still getting value.
Yeah, it has to be fun for me.
Yeah.
It's got to be fun. If I'm having fun, then I'm going to continue to keep going. So I completely get that. Anything more about stage two, or do we need to move on to stage three?
Nope, I think we're good to go to stage three. So, stage three is the refinement stage. And this is where you're making really tiny changes in your business. You're just optimizing things a little bit. And before we made this huge pivot in my businesses at the beginning of the year, this is where I was within my marketing agency. And I won't say that it took 15 years. I think it's important to note that you will go back and forth through these stages as a self employed entrepreneur. There will be times where, like right now, I'm back in stage one. I am in the alignment phase because I decided to make a big change based on where I am in my life and some things that are going on within my family. So, and there's no shame in that. That's another big piece that I want people to know is oftentimes we look at the corporate world and we think, oh, we can only go up, we can only climb. But really, this is more of a spectrum based on the size of the changes that you're making and the impact that they have, whether they are in that foundational piece of building your business in stage one, the construction stage that really affects your quality of life in the business in stage two, or at stage three, what you're really focusing on is your efficiency and your productivity. So, this is where, for example, my operations manager and we decided we no longer needed an hour and a half Monday meeting to go over all of our clients. We decided that call, we weren't able to take notes and get these little things done for clients during the meeting. We had to then have the meeting and then go do all that work afterwards. So, what we decided to do was completely remove the meeting from our calendars and instead do Voxer conversations. And what we would do is, if you've ever used Voxer, it's like a audio recording messaging tool that also has text to it, but the majority of what you use it for is audio. We would record a message to each other about clients A, B, C, and D, and then we'd leave a little text note that said, hey, that message up there, and we'd have this little pointing emoji that says, hey, that's about clients A, B, C, and D. And then we do another recording and go, okay, this one is about clients E, F, G, and H. And that was so much more efficient for us because she could be listening to my Voxer message, taking notes, sending an email to a client, doing the things that I'm asking her to do while I'm asking her to do it. And we got so much more done. It was less draining. We were more productive and it was just more enjoyable. I already have so many meetings in my calendar every single week. I didn't feel like I needed another one. And so that's a very tiny change that's all about efficiency, productivity, and again, leaning towards that improved quality of life, but on a more microcosm sort of scale.
So, you just gave us a technology tip or a app. How do you spell Voxer?
Voxer.
Okay, so Voxer. And is that something that goes on your phone? Does it go on your laptop? Both? How do you use it?
Both. So I like to use it on my phone just because it's easier for me to hold it in my hand while I'm clicking around on my computer and talking about some things that I want to explain to her. But there's also a desktop version where you can open it up in your web browser, hit record, and if you have a webcam or a podcast mic or whatever's hooked up to your computer, maybe it's even a kind of like what do they call it when it's installed in your laptop? Built in. There we go. Maybe you have a built-in microphone. Then you can just record yourself there in the browser.
Interesting. Very interesting. So, anything else about that stage three, those little twists and the little turns? Anything else there?
Yeah, so this is really where when we think about getting to the place in our business where we are just so happy, we're happy, like we've done it, we've built the machine. This is the point where if stage one is you collecting all the pieces for the machine, and stage two is you building the machine, then stage three is really where you're just oiling the machine and you're just doing maintenance, you're just doing upkeep. And this is the stage where you get to really focus in on what isn't making you happy. They are things in your business that need to happen, but maybe you don't have to do them. Maybe if you don't like managing your inbox, this is where you hand that off to a VA and you create a labeling system. And Gabe, I know you use rules within your inbox. This is where you're creating those rules, and all you're doing is protecting your time more and more and more and more and more, so that really everything that you're doing in your business is only the stuff that you love.
Yeah. No, I personally, I am trying to get to a point where all I do is just talk to people. Literally just talk to people. It's what makes me happy. It's what's fun. Delegate everything else. And so that's where I want to spend my time. So I completely get that. And the interesting thing is as you're going through the stages, the alignment stage, the construction stage, and the what I would call the refinement stage, um, I am constantly running across those three with my business all the time. And so I can think of specific things that we're working on right now along each of those. That's very insightful and great information. Anything else regarding this three stages you would like to share?
To your point, if you're at the point where you're doing a lot of refinement and you're really just trying to get to a point where all you do is talk to people all day long because that's
Mhm.
what you really love to do,
Mhm.
you might be still doing things like tweaking your pricing a little bit. And you might think, oh, pricing, I'm in stage one. No, that's where you really figure out what do you actually need to be making? What are your base rates? But of course, as a business goes on, especially over time, you have to increase your rates. You might need to say, oh, I want to put more into my retirement account. I'm going to add $100 to all of my services, or I'm going to increase my base hourly rate by $20 or whatever it might be. Those are still minor refinements. So I would argue that you are very much in the refinement stage, and really you already have all the building blocks in place. You might just be kind of polishing them and sanding them and maybe painting them a different color and just customizing it more and more and more to suit you.
I think you hit it right on. I agree. I think I am polishing and sanding and painting. So that's a great example, especially for someone who works with creatives. That actually fit really well for you. So, as before, when we were on this podcast together, this is a podcast about money. And I've got three questions I ask every one of my guests regarding money. And so your answers might be different than they were before, which is totally fine. So, my first question is, what's the smartest thing you've ever done with money? And what is that story?
I deliberately didn't listen to my previous episode because I wanted my answers to really come from the present, the now. I didn't want to be influenced by past me's responses. And so they probably are very different from what I said last time. But I would say the smartest thing I've ever done with money is figuring out my pricing, and on a deeper level, figuring out that pricing is such a massive factor of your happiness in your business. And I'll give you an example. Years and years ago, when I was starting out as a freelance blogger, I realized that there was a huge difference between when I would do a blog for $25 and I was writing, oh my God, I was writing all of these automotive blog articles for Chevy and Toyota and Ford. And it was through basically a content mill, and it was miserable. And then I would do a very similar blog, maybe for like a car insurance company, but it was for $250, not $25. And it could be the same topic, same industry, same process, same everything. The only thing that changed was the rate. And so I realized that by increasing my rates, literally everything improved. Not just my revenue, but also my happiness, my energy, my enjoyment in my business, my creativity, my productivity. I even felt healthier because I didn't have to spend so much time sitting at my computer. to there was one point in my business where I was writing for about 18 hours a day. I had horrible carpal tunnel, I had back problems because I was just trying to make ends meet doing these $25 a pop content mill pieces. And so this might seem like an obvious thing, but every single freelancer and entrepreneur that I have ever worked with, we completely make over their pricing. And when we do, they have massive transformation for the better in their business, in their mental health, in their quality of life. Because when you adjust your rates and you align them to what you need energetically, everything changes. Money is an energetic exchange between us as service providers and our clients. When we give parts of ourselves, whether that's advice and knowledge or creativity as writers, designers, VAs, marketers, whatever we are, and we don't feel like we're receiving equally in return, that saps our energy on so many levels. And yet, when you fix that energetic exchange and you raise your rates, something that is completely within your control, everything changes for the better. And when I figured that out, and when I figured out there are always going to be companies that will pay me whatever I ask for. It's like we see these Hermes bags being sold for $6,000. You go to Walmart, you see one that looks pretty dang near identical, but of course, it's made differently and all that, but it's $20. There will always be someone who wants to buy that Hermes bag. So, do you want to have Hermes prices or do you want to have Walmart prices? Or somewhere in between? You have to figure out what's right for you. That's definitely the biggest money lesson I've ever learned.
Yeah, that's a fantastic lesson. And there is somebody listening going, all right, I got to raise my prices. I've been meaning to do it. Now I need the real reason why. It's going to make you feel better in the long run. So you need to make that change. Now, there's a process you'll want to go through of communicating that to your clients and the understanding of the why and the value. But you got to start with getting your mind around the fact that you're actually going to raise your prices, which is that sometimes is no, it's not sometimes. It is the hardest part is to get your mind around the fact that you're going to do it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. All right. So let's go to the other side. What's the biggest money mistake you've ever made? And tell me that story.
This one is really, really hard for me. And I actually sat trying to think about a money mistake for a really long time. I was thinking about this morning. And there are definitely things that looking back, I'm like, ugh, I wish I hadn't spent that money. But at the same time, I learned something from each of those experiences. So, I've had team members who I've hired and spent 4 or 5, 6, no, not 6, oh God, 4 or 5 figures on, and they didn't do the work. They never got it done. And it just felt like a waste of time and a waste of money. But after hiring and then firing that team member, I learned so much. So, and this has happened with coaches I've hired where I'm like, well, that was a waste. But at the same time, I learned what to look for in a coach that will actually help me realize my goals and get to the point where I want to get. So while there are things that, from just a strictly money perspective, I wish I hadn't spent that money on, I'm actually glad for all of those experiences because I learned so much. And it was, if I wasted $10,000 on this team member, but I learned this lesson that prevented me from wasting any more money, then it was worth it.
That makes sense. That makes total sense.
Not to be a rebel, but
That's okay. That's okay. So how about the last question? And that is, what does mastering your finances mean to you?
I know a lot of people say money's not the most important thing in life, and there's so many things that are more of a priority than money, and your life shouldn't be all about money. But really, money is what allows you to focus on or improve or spend time with all those things that do make your life so much more meaningful and so much better. I like to think of it as money is the electricity that runs through your house. And when you don't have it, certain things in your life, things that you want, don't run. If you want to store food in your house, but your electricity goes out and your refrigerator goes out, that's a huge inconvenience, and it might affect your quality of life. It's the same sort of thing. So maybe when we're thinking about money, maybe your health suffers because you buy cheap food, or you don't play sports, or you don't go to the gym, or you can't afford health insurance. Maybe your enjoyment suffers because you work too much and you never take time off to travel. Or maybe your relationships suffer because you're fixated on money and stressed and tense about it. When your money is in order, and when you've really mastered your money, and when money is flowing to you, it can then flow through you. It can be put to use to do the things that you want in life and have an impact on the world in a way that's meaningful to you and that serves your purpose. And that's what it's all about. It's all about purpose and alignment, and it's unique to you. So some people need $1,000 a month to feel like they're fulfilling their purpose and living in alignment. Others need $10,000 per month. There's this woman who I like to follow on social media and things, and her podcast and whatnot. And she makes like $40,000 a month. And that means a lot to her because she gives so much to her church, and she gives a lot to charitable organizations, and she runs all of these scholarships and things like that. That's her way of giving back and having an impact on the world. So for me, mastering your money is all about figuring out what you need and then building your business to support those goals, and knowing that as money flows to you and through you, you are fulfilling your purpose and you're having that impact on the world that you want to have.
Very well said, Ray. I appreciate that.
Thanks.
If there's somebody out there who would like to get a hold of you, how can my listeners find you? Is there any place you'd like to direct them?
Yeah, absolutely. So I have a podcast called the SOAR podcast. If you're interested in being inspired by other entrepreneurs who have built these businesses on seemingly impossible dreams, and yet they've made them possible. I also have a free 8-day email course on manifestation and getting your mindset right to create that life that you want. And then if you want some more personalized help, if you're in that alignment stage, I have workshops every month that help you build those foundational pieces that help you get there. And then in July of 2022, we'll be opening up the doors to our mastermind, which is really for people in that construction stage.
Very good. And where do they go? What website? Where do they go?
Yeah, you can visit me at chironconsulting.us, and that's CHIRON consulting.us.
Social media, any place they can connect with you, social media, or just keep it simple and go to your website?
Yep, you can find me on Instagram at Chiron Consulting, and on Facebook, I am at Chiron Consulting US.
Very good. All right. So is there anything else you would like to share, Ray?
It can be scary at first to decide that you're going to go with your gut and trust your intuition and base all of your business decisions on the life that you want, and to set aside what everyone else is telling you you need to earn, or you need to achieve, or you need to do in order to have a successful business. But I guarantee you, when you align that business to what you really want and what your inner purpose is, it all falls into place. And then one day you wake up and you're pinching yourself because you can't believe this is your life and you're just literally living the dream.
I love it. That's a great way to end the podcast. Thank you very much for being on Solopreneur Money, Ray.
Thanks so much for having me. I appreciate it.
Well, Solopreneurs, I hope you enjoyed that conversation as much as I did. Ray shared some fantastic tips, all kinds of great information, but my 3 takeaways for you as we close out this podcast. 1, make sure to align your business decisions with really how you want your business and your life to look like. That's the first thing. The second takeaway is don't judge your business by time, by the size of your team, by revenues. Judge your business by how well it is aligned with your life so that you are happy coming to work and going to work every single day. And then the last thing is the size of the decisions you are making have a tendency to tell you where you are in the stages of business, whether you're in the construction stage and you're building the foundation of your business, whether you're in the building blocks, that second stage where you're then taking and building up your house, to use that house example, and putting those major pieces in place, or are you in the perfecting and the refining stage, that third stage where you're just continuously making things better? So those are my 3 takeaways from this podcast. One last little plug. If, in fact, you have not gotten your copy of the Solopreneurs Money Manifesto, the book that I wrote that came out in January, please go to Amazon, click on the Solopreneurs Money Manifesto, and either download your copy or buy one. Thanks for listening. Have a fantastic day.